so it is electronically.
All right, you heard Senator Abaribe. A lot of intrigues are being generated in that, but let me bring you right in the front seat of this conversation. I'm being joined by one of those who had the debate, who went to the executive session, they emerged from it, passed it through third reading. Now, what is next in the procedural and the legislative process of all of this is an alignment with the House of Reps. It does look like the House of Reps, that those who are criticizing the Senate is less progressive than their colleagues in the Green Chamber, because their own amendment is a bit more distinct and more progressive in nature. Let's find out from member of the Red Chamber of the National Assembly, Senator Victor Ume. Is one of the minority lawmakers who has strongly made their position known in this. Is live for us here in our studio. Thanks so much, Senator, for joining us.
Thank you, Chair, for having me. Good evening, Nigerians.
Yeah. I'm very sure that if that has been passed earlier in the day, the sound and the noise of crucify him to you and your colleagues from a lot of Nigerians was so resounding that if they had met any one of you on the street of Nigeria yesterday night, maybe some of Nigerians would have held you by the cloth. But it provoke a lot of people who think that the amendment to the electoral law of 2026 will be dramatically different based on our experience of 2023 election, especially the clause 63 of the Electoral Act 2022. But Senator, where did it change? Who changed it? What happened? Because the position here is that what you debated on the floor is different from what has been published.
Well, thank you, Shane. I have to remind you that lawmaking is not an event. It takes a process to make a law. And the National Assembly knows clearly that for you to make a law, you have to subject it to some processes. The bill will have to come, go through first reading, second reading, then go through public hearing and other consultative actions before you come back for debate and passage. With the level of outcry that came out yesterday and up to today, Nigerians are very angry because of how it finished yesterday. It goes to show that what they had was not what they were expecting. And laws are made to either provide for orderliness or to solve a problem. You don't make a law in vain because you want to make law. Laws are targeted at solving certain problems. You know that the last election we had here in Nigeria, general election in 2023, was highly disputed. And Nigerians were waiting for another opportunity to have an election that will be seamless, that will be, the result to be accepted by a majority of Nigerians. And when the Electoral Act amendment was introduced, the Senate did not take it just like an ordinary thing. The Senate had to set up the committee. But I also want to point out that Nigeria runs a bicameral legislature. We have the House of Representatives, we have the Senate. And both chambers have committees on electoral matters. So in order to approach this very important process, the House of Rep Electoral Committee and the Senate Committee on Electoral Matters had to organize a joint session and retreat, and brought major stakeholders. Independent National Electoral Commission was there, national chairmen of political parties were there, legal luminaries were there, and some judges were also there to help to brainstorm on what will be an acceptable and amendments that will help to cure the problems we have in our electoral system. Civil society organizations were there in their numbers. So it was not something that was just started and finished yesterday. They started this thing since over a year ago, and they met, received suggestions from the public, and then the committee embarked on 6 zonal public hearings, the 6 geopolitical zones in Nigeria. The joint committee went round and received memoranda and opinions of Nigerians on what they desire to be done. And then when they finished, they compiled their reports and submitted to both chambers after the public hearings. The draft Electoral Act Amendment Bill was brought to the Senate and also brought to the House of Representatives. Each chamber went to do their work on the report. But it is good to say that in all these retreats, all the zonal public hearings, all the consultations and joint sessions they had, one issue received unanimous approval and demand from the public, and that is to say, to amend Section 60 of the Electoral Act of 2022 as it affects transmission of results. It became a vexed issue because, one, you recall that after the presidential election, the matter went to the Supreme Court, from Court of Appeal to the Supreme Court. And arguments were taken on the uploaded results to the IREF portal electronically, And the other side argued against that the electronic transmission of results was not in the Electoral Act. And the Supreme Court relied on that to discountenance all the evidence adduced that had to do with electronic transmission of results, both IREF portal and all that. So it is based on this that all the stakeholders decided that this amendment will provide for electronic transmission of results, so that where there is dispute again, the court will not say that it is unknown to law. That's why there was unanimity of agreement that electronic transmission of results must be put there. Yeah. So when it now came back home to the National Assembly, for us in the Senate, because the House of Reps had finished their own processes, passed their Electoral Act Amendment Bill, reflecting all these submissions they got from their joint sessions and joint public hearings across Nigeria, and provided for electronic transmission of election results, well embedded, and passed it, among other things. It's just because this one is the controversial issue. That's why I'm dwelling on it. There were a lot of other things they provided for. And then, to our own side, to do it, the Senate President, in his wisdom, decided to set up an ad hoc committee of the Senate to go and look at the report presented to us by the Senate Committee on Electoral Matters. And that committee was made up of 8 persons, 8 senators, 6 members of the APC senators, and the 2 from the other side. They were given time to go and look at it and bring back their report to the Senate. The idea, from what the Senate President reasoned, was to prepare a ground for easy coming together by the Senate in considering the report of the Electoral Committee. So that committee was headed by a senior advocate of Nigeria, a senator, distinguished Senator Adebi Abominere. And of course, they brought their report to the Senate. It was debated exhaustively because their committee returned the electronic transmission of results. in what they brought back
so
to the
at
Senate.
what point did that change?
I'm coming. This is the explanation I'm giving you. So we now came back to consider those things in the closed session, where everything in the Electoral Act Amendment Bill was taken. Everything was taken.
All the amendment clauses?
All the amendment clauses were taken, agreed to, or rejected in that closed session. Senators overwhelmingly approved the transmission of results electronically. So it was common ground. Everybody agreed. Even the ad hoc committee set up by the Senate agreed to it. And yesterday, when we came to the plenary, everybody was happy that all the issues have been dealt with.
And resolved.
They've been resolved with generality of the senators agreeing to this major amendment. Because everybody in Nigeria is looking forward to having a credible, free and fair, no controversial election. That is the aspiration of Nigerians and every one of us. So when the clause-by-clause consideration came again in plenary, many people were not even listening again because all issues have been agreed to. And we were passing everything the way
the committee of the whole.
The committee of whole, everything we agreed to, you know. Then from what we later saw, that there was a communication in front of the table between two persons that wants to do this one. These people were not even looking because we were passing everything. And eventually, I understand that somebody said they want to expunge the word transmission for this, and somebody seconded. It was not debated. If such a major alteration to what we have been generally agreed to were to come up, it will be thrown up open again.
Senator,
so we didn't debate anything like that, yes.
Was there, and I'll read to Nigerians, maybe they will understand.
Yes.
What was agreed upon at the executive session, section 60, sub 3, and I want to read it out.
Yes.
Is this what was agreed? That the commission, this is the amendment, that the commission shall electronically transmit the result from each polling unit to the IREV portal in real time, and such transmission shall be done simultaneously with the physical collation of result. Is that what was agreed upon?
What was agreed upon was that the results, polling unit results, will be transmitted electronically to the
IREV portal in real time. Physically, we are alongside simultaneously with the physical.
No, it's not there.
Okay.
I can read it for you.
This is the House version that I read to you.
Okay, no, it's not in our version.
So
physically, alongside physically, it wasn't in our version.
But what I was
in real time. So during the executive session, the only argument someone made was that on real time should be removed because of maybe there might be something that would delay it.
Network issue.
Yeah. So it was only on real time that was removed. Expunged. And it was passed like that, agreed to by everybody. You know, so coming back to where I was before you brought that question, the issue of whether the results will be transmitted electronically was not an issue of any disagreement when we considered it in a committee of executive session. So now that it appears, because that's what is now coming to be, that somebody got up and said he wants to expunge the transmission, and then somebody seconded, and the gavel went. There was no debate on it. Because if they allow debate on it, it will take us back to the executive session and to all the arguments we have made on the matter and resolve them, both by the ad hoc committee. So nobody was expecting that such a thing ever happened.
So it was sort of like what we agreed in the executive session and what the gavel dropped on were two different things.
It appears so, because
And
that's
because
what they're trying to make us
Senator,
understand. Yes.
what we saw, what was published, was that it was agreed that you passed transfer of results. That was one of the things that was and that you did not agree on e-transmission or electronic transmission.
No, it's not true. We agreed on electronic transmission. Let me even tell you, if going by that report, that somebody said that he wants to expunge the word transmission and replace it with transfer, if you put it in that proposed amendment, it will not mean anything. You cannot put a transfer or electronic transmission, because there are other words that follow it. Will you transfer to the IRF portal? If you expunge transmission and put transfer there, how do you transfer to portal? So if it's not done electronically.
For a lot of Nigerians who are watching tonight, some of you have said, especially the minority senator, to say we disagree on what was passed through the third hearing on this bill. Because legally speaking, what has been passed will now go into a concurrence.
There will be a harmonization, not
yeah.
concurrence yet.
Harmonization committee.
Let me even tell you where we stopped yesterday. Harmonization committee was set up that will now meet with the House of Reps Harmonization committee, because there are places who passed different things. And now that the House of Reps passed electronic transmission of results, among other places, they passed all three modes of primaries: indirect, direct, and consensus. They passed it. But in our own case, the Senate dropped indirect and passed direct and consensus. So all these things go back to...
And you also agree on the timing, reduction of 180 days to 90
for
days.
notice to election, 360 days down to 180.
Does it satisfy the timing that you passed? Does it satisfy that? Because the argument of Nigerians majorly is that, look, we need to finalize election matter before swearing in. Nobody should be sworn in. Then after 6 months, we now discover that there's a change. Anybody that is going to face litigation, face it before you're swearing in. Did your agreement or the final agreement at that sitting yesterday satisfy that too?
No. You see, the timelines that we had, 360 for notice of election, it was called down to 180. Then time to publish a list of candidates. In the previous act, it was 150 days to the date of election. It was brought down to 60 days, you know. So all these things are the things that you go and argue over again and see whether they make sense in the light of what both chambers have passed.
Senator, it does, I mean, what some of you and your colleagues in the Senate minority are saying is that we are not part of this. Sure, this is not.
No, you don't. You see, you don't introduce a surprise in the middle of a process. This thing has been agreed to by everybody. I mean, and it is in accord with the expectation of Nigerian people. There is no way we can have an election that was conducted and the results were made available. Then, along the line, there was a complaint of a glitch in the presidential election, and everything went to court. And the court said they will not make use of the electronic transmission of results because it was unknown to the Electoral Act.
Truly, it was.
It was unknown.
Yeah.
So that is why lawmaking is ingenious. You do that with a view to correcting the lapses you have experienced, anomalies of the past. That is why from all the processes this amendment went through, nobody opposed it. It was very popular.
Senator.
And as it has happened, I want to tell you that if it was not against the public interest, the level of outcry it has generated wouldn't have been so. Because we, the senators, are under barrage of attacks. We've been insulted. Saying the Senate, nobody says some people, say the Senate rejected e-transmission of results. It's not a fair presentation. because majority of the senators, both APC and all parties, agreed to this inclusion. Electronic transmission of results. It doesn't hurt anybody.
How do we fix this now? Because there seems to be that some people want it the way it used to be. And if there are major issues to say, whatever happened, go to court. These amendments should have fixed go to court scenario, narrative. It will also fix that INEC will not be able to say there is election, there is glitches in the transmission, or they will not say, okay, there is what is on the IRF is different from what is on the physical. All of these amendments would have fixed it. But now that it has gotten to this point, and some of you had come out to say, we are not part of it, how do we fix it to wrap up?
Well, the way to fix it is for us to go to what the people agreed. The Nigerian people agreed and demanded for electronic transmission of results. Law is not made by the National Assembly alone. It's also made carrying the citizens along. That is why no law can be passed in Nigeria without subjecting it to public hearing. The essence of public hearing is to bring the public interest in the matter. It will be debated exhaustively, so that when you are passing a law, you're passing a law that is in tandem with the aspirations of the Nigerian people
and the interests of
the country. So if you go and do otherwise, you generate the tension what is playing out has generated now. So I think that all hopes are not lost yet, because the issue of going back to 2022 Electoral Act that talked about transfer, it was not the case when the senators discussed it exhaustively. You know, it was rejected. They said electronic transmission, all divides. So you cannot come now and do it, maybe, I don't know the word that would be appropriate, but put it in a manner that the senators will be taken unawares. And it was not debated, because we had ample time to debate this thing during closed session. And everybody aired his view, and over 85% of the senators agreed to electronic transmission of results. So now, we didn't finish yesterday. That is why this is the way God works. We didn't come back to approve and adopt the votes and proceedings of yesterday before proceeding to, before adjourning and handing the matter over to conference committee. You know, it is the approved votes and proceedings that will be taken to the committee for harmonization. So we have not finished. And I believe that by the time we come back to approve that vote and proceedings, because that day the question will be put: is this a true reflection of what we did yesterday? You'll see how the senators will react.
We'll be waiting for that. But thank you so much indeed for you and your colleagues coming out. I appreciate Senator.
No,
we'll be monitoring closely.
We are for the Nigerian people. You see, I'm not here to make. Nobody should make a law that will be self-serving. We should be making laws that will correct problems in Nigeria and put this country on a very strong standing. For us to have anything that will be credible.
Thank you so much.
On the issue of election, is a very sensitive one.
Very.
It's not something anybody can do hide and seek. We must agree to it. And Nigerians have called us all manners of names. We have to take the insult because we have disappointed them from the news they got. But I want to say that those of us who said that was not what we agreed to, both in closed session and by the Electoral Committee, and by the ad hoc committee set up to review the same thing, it cannot just change. Yes, it cannot just change.
Thank you so much. Senator Victor Ume, thank you so much indeed for your time. We'll be monitoring closely and hoping that sometimes we will get you back as this progress. Thank you so much indeed for your time. Senator Victor Ume.
Don't monitor me, monitor the Senate.
No, I'm talking about what is going on. You and the proceedings there, you and your colleagues. Thanks so much indeed. I appreciate it.